What's going on, Cowboys Nation? I don't know this stuff together. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Let me get my camera and stuff set up. I don't know why it's not connected, but really appreciate you guys jumping in. Go live for a second. I'm sure you guys just seen the breaking news. Jake Ferguson getting his contract. I'm excited about that. I love, of course, you guys. If you guys been following me, you guys know I love my tight ends. And we're definitely gonna jump into that. Let me just see if I can get my stuff straight. As you guys come in, make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the share button for me, please. Also, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button as well. Make sure you guys just continue to tap into the channel, keep your notifications on. Just make sure you guys, just stay up to date. I'm going to try to go, live. As you guys know, like I told you guys last week, I started my new gig. Started a new place here around the corner from my spot, but the hours are like really throwing me for a loop right now. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, because it's just, I'm so used to getting off early, around like 1 or 2, and then having time to be able to, I'm able to go live. But yeah, there we go. Okay, all right, my camera is straight now, so we get to go now. But yeah, like I was saying, so my hours, now I'm kind of getting off around 5, 6. So like my day is kind of just because right now I'm kind of in the train. Like I said, we're just gonna be kind of improvising as we go along. But today's Sunday, another one of my days off, so I kind of want to go live, kind of talk about his contract, and also before I get started, shout out to Dak Owens in the chat. Always the first one to show up, and he's definitely right. Make sure you guys get those likes up, and like I said, hit the share button as well if you haven't already. But and also shout out to Raymond Salas in the building. Very happy to be back. Thank you for joining me. But like I said, yeah, I wanted to you guys know I love my tight ends, and seeing Ferg's contract, I'm happy for him. I know last season he had a down year. When he was down, due, of course, we know injury. The first game of the season, he ended. It's not funny, but he ended he injured his knee in the first game of the season. These players kind of come out expecting themselves to kind of, hit the running, and it just kind of sucks to kind of be hurt right out the gate. But he also threw some other things throughout the season. We had a concussion. I kind of had him down. Coaching staff had him doing a few extra things around the line of scrimmage, kind of just being an extension of that offensive line, and taking on those chips, from those very strong players on the outside. That kind of took a toll of him, throughout the season. I think started to see that. We saw some of the other tight ends in the room get chances. We saw Brevyn Spann-Ford, get a couple. Didn't trust him a whole lot, but he did put him in some certain situations to maybe kind of, schoolmakers kind of come along as well. He's put in some situations as well. Some seam balls, sometimes being used as a red zone target. We love seeing some, these players, even this year, one of Schottenheimer's things is these players being multiple. We saw some instances of that in these past seasons, but not a lot. So, like I said, just my personal favorite, one of my personal favorite rooms, the tight end room. I just love seeing just really, I think it was mentioned on one of these Cowboys channels that, just the athletic ability of these players in this room is just really on display this season. Of course, we see the height, the physicality of Brevyn Spann-Ford, him kind of digging into his game a little bit more. Princeton Fant, a big body guy, but still able to be physical, kind of fighting off defenders, catching balls down the middle as well. So just seeing some of these guys in the room, Tyler Neville as well. Even though, although he is undrafted, but he's showing some things as well, in the blocking game. And of course, speaking of blocking, we know Schoonmaker, that's one of his specialties. So just seeing all these guys kind of put some of their athletic abilities on display, I'm happy to see that. I think that these guys are also gaining a little bit more confidence. And another undrafted as well, Rivaldo Fairweather. And I think he's definitely getting some snaps out in the individual drills, the tight end drills. I don't know just how getting with the offenses. I have seen him out there every now and then. I think his number is 45. I like his physicality as well. I think that, although he may be a long way from getting a starting spot, these two guys in particular, definitely do have a chance to get a spot on the practice squad. So, like I said, let me go ahead and bring up these details of Jake Ferguson's contract, and we'll kind of jump into that. 4-year deal. I believe it's the amount is $52 million. Evens out to about $13 million a year, signing bonus of $12 million. Very happy for him. I'm always happy for any player that is able to get his payday. And I kind of seeing right now, kind of seeing the split, amongst Cowboys Nation. Some people are happy, some people are, maybe on the fence, or maybe they feel the Cowboys maybe should have waited, maybe seeing, what kind of year Jake Ferguson could have had, right? That was something, shout out to my girl Star. She's, she rocks with me every week on Wednesday. We talked about that last week about, it was my. Okay, I'm back, y'all. I don't know. I think I might be a little further, a little far from the modem. So, but now and then, that's probably what it is with the connect. I was saying, I feel like, dang, what was I saying? About potentially up for contract. We know we have a Tyler Smith, Deron Bland. I feel like Deron Bland, kind of maybe not spoke directly with Steven just, but maybe it was something along the lines of he wanted to kind of play this year out, see where his numbers are at the end of the year. And I feel like the Cowboys are feel kind of mutual about that. I feel like they want to see what kind of season he has. He came back late in the season last year. I forget the exact week, but kind of late in the season was able to come back. But of course, the numbers don't reflect the entire season. So I feel like they want to see what kind of year Deron Bland will have. And I thought they were going to do the same thing with Jake Ferguson, especially with him coming off a down year. And honestly, I didn't expect Ferguson to really be extended at all. I figured with the Brevyn Spann-Ford, with Schoolmaker coming, but I just figured with these options that we do have, I really didn't think, like I said, I thought that they would see how Ferguson played throughout the 2025 season to see if he can get back to his Pro Bowl year he had a couple years ago. But, also, I hate to say approve it because he has played well for the Cowboys. He has been that weapon for Dak, that security blanket. And I think that's been very important, but I don't necessarily think that's been Jake's role, right? He's, been used as the number two receiver, if you will, kind of the number two weapon. I'm saying? Before they brought in George Pickens, I think they were just looking for, they always were looking for another option with for Dak. But I think now, with solidifying the tight end one position, I think that, next year they can even go further next year, but if they decide to extend Pickens, you could really solidify some of these stars on this off. This honestly one of the reasons why I'm excited, because I feel like you could go ahead, like I said last week, this could kind of be like a foundational year where you solidify the offense, because you have a lot of young guys coming in, and you did bring in George Pickens through free agency, but if you do decide to extend him, you have your top wide receivers, tight end 1 and 2. And then you also have, your tight end 1. So you're just kind of, putting these pieces in places, where you really need them, in my opinion. I'm saying we need these starters. We need some of these positions solidified. And then also, also speaking about players like Tyler Smith, Deron Bland, we need those positions solidified as well. And I think they're going to go ahead and sign Tyler Smith. Was just confirmed as I think one of the top linemen. I think he's like the 4th lineman in history to be able to reach multiple Pro Bowls before the age of 24. So for him to see records like that, I think it's no question that they're going to sign Tyler Smith. Now, I was definitely, at least like I said, in my opinion, at least for me, I thought the Cowboys were on the fence about Ferg and Bland, but obviously not Ferg. But I think they're going to see how Bland plays his year out, and they'll go from there. But like I said, I'm happy for Ferg. I'm glad he was able to get his money. I think he deserves it. I feel like I just feel like he's stepped up in those times that the Cowboys have asked him, like last year when they asked him to be that extension of the O-line. When they asked him to be pretty much essentially not wide receiver 2, but all of these years that CD hasn't really had a number 2 weapon, or that Dak hasn't had a number 2 weapon, Jake has had to step up in those instances. So I think he's done a great job. Now granted, I feel like he plays a little bit better versus division rivals, which we definitely need. And other games he's still out as well, but I feel like he, of course, injury aside, hopefully this year he'll come back stronger. They say he has lost a little bit of weight, and that could be good. That could be something that kind of led to some of these injuries last season. Maybe they said, Lunda Wells did say that he was and Mike McCarthy spoke to this as well last season when he was here, that Jake Ferguson was one of the guys in the weight room during the offseason putting on weight, and maybe that wasn't the best thing for him, right? So this season he's also just slightly a little bit of weight. We see him, at camp, flashing. I'll actually bring up some clips later on in the show, but since we're talking about him, let me go ahead and bring him up. Shout out to Patrick No-C Walker. I'm going to bring up just some of his clips from his page because he has some great clips, and I believe he does have one of Jake Ferguson. So this is why we're talking about him. we've of course seen the seam passes from Dak Prescott. We know that's one of Jake's specialties, really. Let's see if I can get to these clips right quick. And just really talking in general, we see other standouts like Donovan Ezraku, Kaiir Elam. He really, and that's honestly, guys, that was really going to be a show before I joined here. But like right when I was about to, go live, they dropped the news about Ferguson getting. So I kind of had to, move some things around because really Kaiir Elam, I really love that he's just really kept improving himself. Like I'm definitely gonna get into the topic a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to get Ferguson's information about his contract out of the way. And of course, you guys see the clip. Make it bigger for you guys. To that cut. Even the physicality, he kind of bangs and really shows nothing of it. It's really, I'm sure what a lot of Cowboys fans love about Ferg, but it's really one of the main athletes that I love so much about him is that he's really not afraid to go in there. He's not afraid to contact. He's not afraid to go across the middle, catch that ball, make moves. You know what I'm saying? Even like I said, even last year when they asked me, we got to you know what I'm saying? He loves the physicality of the game, and I think his attitude is a major part of why, number one, Cowboys love him, why Cowboys fans love him, but I feel like his attitude is a part of his actual game. I feel like, sometimes, that can be a weapon in your arsenal, right? The attitude that you take when you go on the field, how you play against the opponent. And I just feel like that, it's really strong with Jake Ferguson. I love he's also showing leadership, right? He's out here and he spoke about spending a lot of time with Brevyn Spann-Ford, spending time with the other rookies, giving them pointers every now and then, but really, really being at the hip with Brevyn Spann-Ford, saying he's kind of been that rookie, kind of pushing him to do the tough workouts, pushing him to do, tough things that he may not want to do during the off season, but it's also number one, making him better and also making the rookie better because, when you take these young guys under your wing, they're pretty much following you in every step. So, I'm sure that, like I said, not only makes him better, but it's for the betterment of the team because they're also improving other aspects of that ring. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and, like I said, I just kind of wanted to knock out Ferg's news. Shout out to him. Very glad he was able to get his payday. Now I was talking this with my dad, just shortly, but it makes you wonder how Micah feels. If they had this in their back pocket the whole time, or if they're doing some mess with Micah Parsons, it kind of sucks. You hate to think that your own organization would do this to one of your star players, right? We know Cowboys Nation's waiting on it. Micah Parsons is waiting on it. Media, talks about it every second that they get a chance to, but you just wonder why, your first round draft pick doesn't get paid, but a fourth rounder gets paid. You know what I'm saying? Who came in a year after Micah Parsons. So it just, like, I love the idea. I love that Ferg got paid. I feel like he deserved it. I really love that we have solidified our tight end one. But at the same time, it makes you wonder why your organization would slight, your top player, for what reason? Just give me 1 second, guys. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump and talk about Kaiir Elam. What I actually did, one of the main, like I said, was gonna be my main topic. I want to bring up an old interview that Kaiir Elam had back when he first got here. About 3 or 4 months ago. He talked about how he wanted to prove himself to the organization, prove himself to himself, proving himself right. Let's see if I can bring up this video. Because I feel like Kaiir Elam is really just one of the big standouts in camp this season. I mean, of course, we know former first round pick, acquired through trade for the Cowboys from the Buffalo Bills, and kind of the idea of Cowboys, acquiring these former first round picks through free agency was to kind of revamp some of these careers. you know, kind of hope that they can kind of get back to where, or even if they had never really got to the expectation of coming out, see if they can get there, to see if these coaches, guys like Eberflus, guys like Andre Curtis, guys that they brought in from other organizations, just to see if they could, they can help these players, get back to where they expected themselves to be. So, Kaiir Elam is showing that. I believe he has, three interceptions in camp. Actually, my bad, guys. I don't have that video clip, so I'm just gonna kind of go through my notes. But yeah, Kaiir Elam, the way he just kind of talked, when he first got here, he's saying that he kind of wants, to talk to the, kind of be with the Cowboys. It's a fresh start for him. It's a chance for him to be able to kind of, oh my gosh, oh, sorry y'all. It's a way for him to kind of, revamp his career and be able to show why he was a number one draft, not a number one draft pick, but selected in the first round, right? So with the Buffalo Bills, he wasn't really able to show a lot. He was able to, he had some, I think they said he led the team in interceptions in training camp. But, I think when it got to the regular season, he did do some things down the stretch, but he's more so, he got in with the backups. So he wasn't really able to show a ton of what he could do against any first team. So here kind of being with the Cowboys, he has like a fresh start, able to really show what he can prove, what I'm saying? And, with these interceptions, with these pass breakups in camp, we just saw yesterday, the clip that's going viral, him lifting up the kid, what I'm saying? Like Simba, he said he was kind of recounting the story. Just seeing that energy, everyone kind of rallying around the players, seeing everyone just loving, what's going on, what Kaiir Elam is doing. I just really think that, here's the clip. And shout out to DLLS Cowboys, and I'm a lot of people in the had got this camp. Okay, yeah, here we go. Just give me one extra second. Yeah, okay, there we go. And I believe this was on Jalen Tolbert. He's actually showing, he had some good grabs in camp as well. So I really feel like Jalen Tolbert, I'm not gonna say he solidified the wide receiver 3 spot just yet, but I really feel like him and Mingo are truly going at it. And it's very interesting, shout out to my girl Star. I think she tweeted that Mingo may not have dropped the pass just yet. Maybe he has, maybe had a pass breakup, but I feel like Mingo is really standing out with these catches. So, for me, I'll wait on preseason to see how Mingo looks, but him and Jalen Tolbert are definitely, going at it for that wide receiver 3 spot. But this is the video of Kaiir Elam. Of course, lifting the kid up, and everyone just goes crazy. You guys can see the crowd at training camp. This was yesterday. Of course, you guys already know another practice is going to be today. For the Cowboys at first padded practice, and that's when everyone's really, really excited about. I'm excited about it as well. Really love the energy that these guys are bringing in. It's going to be even more when these guys actually get the pads on. So let's see this one more time, and it's really like it's really not saying it's coming easy for Kaiir, but just the way he's playing, it just really shows that. In his first interview, just a couple notes from his first interview when he got here a couple months ago. One thing he said that he's focusing on now is just some of the nuances, some of the smaller details of being a DB, and maybe some of the nuances that he wasn't well aware of being a younger player. He's saying those are some of the things he's kind of focused on in this past offseason, right? So when you improve those small details, because he has the talent, obviously. He was drafted in the first round of the NFL. And just be able to kind of hone in on the details. That's sometimes what you need, bringing these coaches. He mentioned in his most recent interview that Coach Matt Eberflus kind of focuses on the effort, right? We see Schottenheimer kind of bringing the energy, And Eberflus maybe bringing the other side. He can be bringing in the effort. The effort part of it. We see the defense having a lot of takeaways. Even some people are trying to turn it in a way of saying, okay, should we be concerned about Dak? In these interceptions, but I really think it's just the energy of the defense. We see that every time an offensive player has the ball, they're going in for the ball, they're digging in for the ball. We see them, trying to knock the ball out. We see a lot of pass breakups. We see a lot of punches. A lot of balls being, I think we've seen a couple fumbles as well. So just these players, defensive players, if you will, really going after the ball, is really showing, that it's really that added pressure, that they're placing on these offensive players, to either, improve their hand game, improve catching the ball, keep improving their ball handling skills. Not only does it make the defense better in taking away the ball, but it also improves our wide receivers because, they're ready, when they get in those game time situations where the opposing team is knocking at the ball. Another thing I want to bring up is an Archer. He kind of pointed out some things that he's seen and witnessing camp practice. I just want to bring up this last article, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here because I know there's another practice in about another couple hours, and I'll definitely be going live later on today. But I want to go live just kind of earlier today, just kind of talk about the practices the last couple of days, and then, like I said, this evening I'll go live and talk about the practice that's held today. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. One second, y'all. Okay, let me see if I can. It's still loading, it looks like. And make sure you guys follow Tyler Archer too. He has this page. It's on his Twitter page, and he says the bookmarker because this is where he's going to be putting all of his updates at. I'm sorry, you guys. Give me one more minute. Hey, what's good, Star? How you doing, sis? Hey, I'm happy to see you in the chat. Oh, am I frozen? Hey, let me know if you guys can see me. I'm looking like frozen right now. What is going on? Hold up. Y'all back with me? Let me know if you guys can see me, please, please, please. I am, and sis, no, this is this is no mansion, girl. I wish. Shoot, I don't even know if y'all see me on here if I was in one of them. Please let me know, guys, if y'all can see, y'all can hear me. Because I think I'm just a little bit further from my modem. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting out front. You guys see me? I'm sitting out front this time instead of my backyard. I'm gonna be going back there later on this evening when I go live after they have their practice. But I just want to get this out right quick. Like I said, I'm gonna go over Todd Archer's article just quickly, and then we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. All right, bet. All right, here we go. Let me get this article up right quick. So of course, I mean, I talked about Kaiir lifting up the kid, after the reception. But while it's still loading, I'm just gonna talk. And just some other things I'm noticing in the DB room. While this thing is still loading up, it's taking forever. But Andrew Booth, he's kind of up and down. I'll say one positive thing I like about Andrew Booth is I like his closing speed. Topper did had a great grab in practice yesterday. I think after that, like we saw Wayne Thomas, we saw Andrew Booth kind of closing on him, and that's one thing I really love about seeing about Andrew Booth. Like I know his coverage skills are a little bit iffy, at least from what we've seen from last season. But I really love his closing speed. Hopefully that'll be something. And he's last year we've seen he's a short tackler, so I think that's another positive attribute about him. But I don't really know if he's gonna make the team. I don't know. I feel like guys are really stepping far in that room. Kalen Carson, he's having a decent camp. I see him getting beat a lot. I don't know if I think he'll make the squad. I feel like they'll have some confidence in him for preseason. Give him a little bit more of a shot to kind of make that spot. I think he will make the team, but I think he's worked just a little bit hard. He's getting beat a lot in cup. Just in my opinion, like a lot of players, they catch the ball over him or there, but he's not quite, breaking. I think he has seen a couple pass breakups, but just not. Other guys like Troy did. I've seen some, heard some about him, not a lot, but I've seen he had, a big pass breakup yesterday. He kind of had like a celebration with Israel Mukwamu, talking about lock him up. A lot of good things happening at the practice today, and that was a really big crowd. Is one thing. And I think we all kind of figured it was going to be like that, right? I mean, camp was extremely crowded yesterday. That crowd out there was huge. And I think that's great. I mean, of course, that's what they were kind of looking for, kind of putting the battery back in the backs of the fans, right? Kind of getting a revamp of the organization of the fans, get those fans back out there. I don't know if you guys seen this. I'll see if I can pull it up before we get out of here. I might make it part of my show, maybe like getting out, but I think, Schottenheimer, there's a spot. Let me see. Actually, I'll bring it up right quick. Because there's actually a clip. Shout out to Jonah Javad. I don't know if you guys are, I don't think he's a Cowboys beat reporter, but he does. I think obviously he's a reporter, but he's at the Cowboys pressers, a lot of the interviews, part of that crowd. So I don't know if, like I said, I don't think he's specifically a Cowboys beat writer, but he gets out to camp. He had a few videos on YouTube of, when Trevin Diggs and Micah Parsons were signing autographs. He had a shot of a CD signing autographs for some of the fans, and then yesterday he had I think yesterday or the day before he had gotten a shot of Schottenheimer actually saying autographs for the fans, things like that. And Schottenheimer was telling the fans out there like, hey, this is because of you guys. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for showing your support. Feed off of you guys. So the energy that the Cowboys fans bring to the camp is what the players feed off. But I think not only the relationship we've seen with the coaching staff and the players, but I think the relationship, quote unquote, that the fans are maybe kind of rebuilding, or the players are kind of rebuilding with the fan, is like we want to trust. We want to trust these players again. Trust the front office. Of course, with these moves they're making, it's kind of hard sometimes, but we want to trust that we can believe in these players to play right. We want to be able to trust them that they'll be able to go out there on the field and execute, the way we want them to. And I think, like Schottenheimer said, just the excitement that they're bringing, I think it's just really bringing a huge revamp, just to the style of the way that these guys are playing. And also, it kind of brings, the fans back out again as well. So let me get this article, y'all, so we can get out of here. But yeah. So it's just another note that kind of starts off this article. It says that the Pats come on for the first time on Sunday. Count left guard Tyler Smith in. He says, quote, "Football ultimately isn't played in t-shirts. I feel like these days have been good just in terms of getting acclimated, but I truly do think it's all about when the pads do come on. I think the guys are ready. Energy has been high all camp. We've emphasized it's going to be a physical camp, and that's something I want to embrace," end quote. And I've heard, a lot of people talk about Tyler Smith's size. I think I heard you and Big talk about the other day, sis, on you guys' show, about just how big and just brolic how Tyler Smith looks. And I seen the clip that Botch Lombardi dropped, shot to him. He pretty much had like a side by side of Booker, Tyler Booker next to Cooper Beebe. Later, like kind of further down the line, you see Tyler Smith out there, and he is just huge. He like humongous. Just not only is he growing in progression in his leadership for the team, but you see his size as well. Like I mean, just being part of that line, we have Terrence Steele, he's been out of the last couple of days. They're saying it's mostly out of precaution. So hopefully everything is straight. And that's really another low key, player that I'm cheering for, Terrence Steele, because a lot of the Cowboys nation was kind of down on him last season. So hopefully he can come out and have a really great season this year. And hopefully nothing too serious with his leg. I think they said it was a lower ankle sprain. So hopefully everything can be straight. I really want him to be able to come out and participate, number one, but also to have a bang out year. So. But like I was saying, Tyler Smith saying he's happy to be back in pads, and of course I think all of Cowboys Nation would agree with him. And the next point that Todd Archer brings up, he says free agent pickup Rob Jones was the right guard with the first team offense on instead of Tyler Booker. His first play must not have gone well because he was replaced by Booker, although he returned after the quick absence. So, I think he's number 65. Since I saw one of your tweets, Rob Jones is 65, and he was kind of getting. I know, and shout out to him. He was really getting bigged up, by Cowboys Nation. He spent some extra time out there with Tyler Booker, giving him some pointers. We've seen him out there with him after practice. But as far as in practice, as far as Rob Jones, I think he was kind of getting beat up. We saw him kind of getting, tossed out the club. Because a couple times, not a lot, but I think by Sam Williams. I think Fowler as well was getting back there. Solomon Thomas kind of got back there, and also another guy, Jay Toia. They've been doubling him, but he's been getting back into the quarterback's lap as well. Back into Joe Milton's lap. I think he's had some runs with the ones as well. I think Dak has been able to be able to escape that pocket with Toia back there, but just really some good things, seeing from these guys. And like I mentioned with Rob Jones, I think, like I said, I think he's number 65. But another player I want to shout out quickly, I think he's playing next to Rob Jones, is Hakeem Adeniji. And he's not. I haven't seen all of his clips from training camp, but I love his size. He has extreme. I've never really seen him before, so seeing his height out there on that line, I really like that attribute about him. And I think he's playing well on that outside, taking up that right tackle spot while Terrence Steele is out. I'm excited, because Terrence Steele, he played all the snaps last season. I think the only lineman to be able to do that, and to be able to see another player out there at right tackle, granted it's because they're being precautious, but I'm excited to see different players. I heard earlier that they're I think from DLLS that they're looking at Awesome Richards, to kind of maybe take up, play both sides. Actually, not DLLS. I think it was Nate Newton who mentioned it on Special Edition Cowboys. But Awesome Richards, I'm excited to see just how far he's come. I know Nate Thomas is out there looking good. We talked about that the other day, or I mentioned that the other day. But, I'm excited about that too. I'm excited to see a player like Nate Thomas being able to kind of develop, in the background, because we haven't really heard a lot about him. But seeing that he's kind of developed, kind of while he's been on the back burner a little bit, I love seeing that. The next point by Todd Archer says, another free agent addition, edge rusher Peyton Turner was active early in team drills and getting in the backfield for a would-be stop on running back Deuce Vaughn and pressuring Prescott into a scramble. Now, and that's something that kind of sent me a little sideways because at first when I did see Peyton Turner out there with the ones, I was kind of like, is he getting run, over Sam Williams? Is he getting run, what I'm saying, over Donovan Ezeraku? I was kind of these kind of questions kind of circling through my mind because I'm like, is he playing better than them? But then I realized that they're giving all these players run with the different teams. But to hear Peyton Turner's name even mentioned, honestly, we just know that room is very deep. Donovan Ezeraku, speaking of him, mentioned that yesterday in this interview, saying that that room is very competitive. Really going to be going out here to trying to show what they can be capable of. And kind of speaking of Sam Williams quickly, he's huge, man. I love that the energy that he's bringing, but also at the same time, he put it out there, on Front Street, like, hey, I put this work in. I'm ready for this year to come, and I'm ready to show, what I've been working on. He said for the past 11 months, I've been putting this work in, this grind in. So, it's at least for him, it's finally here. It's finally here for time for him to be able to prove himself, and I think he's ready. Schottenheimer had to, mentioned that he had to pull him out of practice a couple times, but I think secretly it probably made him happy. Like, hey, we need to see you coming back with full force. We need to see you coming back with that full effort that we're asking of you, but also that we're pretty much requiring of you. And I think it's a great confidence boost to see Sam Williams really coming up in this game. And shout out to Rico Jones. Shout out to you, fam. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you. Okay, next point. Safety Wanye Thomas showed a lot of range on an interception of a Joe Milton, the third pass down the sideline intended for wideout Ryan Flournoy. And that's what I mentioned earlier. Wanye Thomas, his closing speed, but he had an interception, I think, in practice yesterday too. So, I think it's amazing that these guys are, guys who may not have the opportunity previously, when they are given the opportunity, we see them flashing. We're seeing Wanye kind of jump up off the page. We're seeing Deuce Vaughn. I know I'm not talking too much about the run game today, but seeing Deuce Vaughn, when he's given the chance, he's showing some pop. And even the next guy here, we're going to mention, talk about Brevyn Spann-Ford, when he's given more opportunity, like, what can these guys show? And, of course, you guys know he's one of my main guys. I was big on him, and John Stevens Jr. last year, but I was big on Brevyn last year, like, for him to be able to kind of step up. And I just really love that. Like I said, I think I put out a reel or a short for this. I think Brevyn he has the potential. I think he will kind of snake that tight end 2 spot from Schoonmaker. I love what Schoonmaker is doing. I love that he has opportunity. He's got the offseason to kind of step up and show what he can be capable of too. But I think he had a fumble in camp. And I'm not saying that Schoonmaker is doing bad. I just feel like Brevyn Spann-Ford is just really stepping up. He's making big plays. He's making big catches. I don't know if you guys did see my reel, but he kind of made a catch on a low pass that Dak threw, and he had some big catches in practice yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So I'm excited to see what. Yeah, you see it too, sis, right? Like, I don't know. Like you said, allegedly, I don't know if he's going to be tied in too for sure. With Schoonmaker being the draft pick and him having the offseason, I think they're going to maybe give him a little bit more edge or a little bit more room for growth in preseason. But I think once these guys kind of get to that starting line and they tell him to go, I think Brevyn Spann-Ford would definitely give him a run for his money because, they're saying Schoon looks better. I think he had a couple catches, in practice as well. Some big catches down the field, you know what I'm saying? And if we can get any remnants of our tight end room to stretch the field, it's one thing we've seen a lot of short passes, at least from our. I know we have seen, we've seen those seam catches from Jake Ferguson, but we didn't see a lot of Jake last year. And we every now and then we see a seam catch from Schoon, but we don't really see a lot of big down the field plays from our tight ends. At least for me, in a while, when Jake Ferguson isn't in there, so to be able to have another tight end who can make a big play, to not have to depend, like we talk about having not to depend on CD all the time. If we don't have to depend on Jake Ferguson all the time, if we could have, a Brevyn Spann-Ford or a Schoonmaker step up, and not just in the blocking aspect of it, but if we could have if they can step up in the passing game, you know what I'm saying? And it sounds like Brevyn Spann-Ford and even Schoonmaker, have taken those strides to kind of improve, to improve their passing abilities. I think that's huge. Because we did have their blocking attributes. We did have, them at the line of scrimmage, and even on those short passes down the field, they were able to complete those passes. But being able to stretch the field, not just with our wide receivers, but with our tight ends as well. That's another way to be able to keep the defense guessing. You feel me? And just to kind of get this last point, that does mention Brevyn Spann-Ford. Milton ended practice with a pretty throw down the seam to tight end Brevyn Spann-Ford. He was able to find some separation between the linebacker and safety. And to see that, I've seen that a lot of practice. From what I've seen in practice, it seems like they're putting Bell, Wanya a couple times, but I've seen Marquise Bell on Brevyn Spann-Ford a lot. I think it's because of the team they're playing on, either second or third team. And Bell is showing some things too. Number one, I really didn't think that Bell would be healthy enough for camp. I know it was his arm, I think, or his arm or his elbow that was. I lost connection. Okay, I'm still moving. Let me know. Okay, just making sure I'm here, still here with you guys. We're actually about to jump off here. And you guys, you guys know Friday they had the day off. This, he had a one-handed catch Thursday or yesterday. think Damone Clark earlier this week had a I think he actually he's the one who punched out the ball for Schoonmaker earlier this week. So it's exciting to see these guys stepping up. When given. All right, y'all. I can't hear the music, so I'm gonna go back live when I get back and conclude this show, officially. Because I don't know if you guys can even hear me. So I thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you guys hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, I'm either pop back in here and try to go live again, or I'll probably just wait till this evening when they already, when they go through the practice, so they have to be seen, kind of stand out. But I really thank you guys for hanging with me. I know, like I said, it's kind of a random show on Sundays, but it actually may be a newer day for me to go live because, like I said, with my longer hours now, I may have to kind of adjust some things. But I'm gonna try to. It's probably me. This is my third day on Sundays, because they even told me I'll be working on Sunday. So, sooner or later that day's gonna be out. But yeah, we'll those things figured out, as times come. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys rocking with me. I really thank you, Rico, for stopping through. Jack owns, of course. I think earlier Raymond saw in the chat. So like I said, when I get out of here, hit the like, the share button. Really, really do me that favor. And